We are back on Taking Care of Business with our in-studio guest, Senator Gene Fuller.
And that'd be Senator of California.
Well, actually, state senator as opposed to
state senator,
which we have only two. See, that's how it works.
And they need to be replaced.
That was the New Jersey Compromise. You get 2 senators from every state.
Got it.
They have to. You mean you don't like Mrs. Feinstein and Mrs.
Boxer? I am not the biggest fan of those two. However, my assistant actually was taken by Boxer to testify in Washington once a few years ago.
When I think of testimony and I think of Boxer, I think of the head of the Black Chamber of Commerce. I love that when he kind of let her have it.
I don't know anything about that.
You don't remember that?
No.
Oh, we'll have to get that and play it one weekend. It's fantastic. He was a little indignant at her questioning.
Speaking of indignant, did you happen to see?
We do have a guest in studio.
I know, but Senator West in the United States Senate.
Yes. Gee, what do you think about that?
Sue Wasserman?
Oh, no, they're both from Florida, and she made some comments about West that he didn't like, and he just he let her have it. So now all of the all the female congressmen or congresswomen, in Washington are saying he owes her an apology, and he said, "No way, Jose."
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that'll be interesting to see how that ends.
It'd be one to see. I'll tell you, it's been on the news the last few days.
Well, he's going to hold his ground. He says, "Hey, I was in the military for 23 years. I don't deserve this kind of abuse," and he's right.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely right.
So, who's our guest today, Marty?
Our guest in person is State Senator. That's how we got into this in the first place, Gene Fuller. So, Gene, I had a question for you. We were talking. I was actually Clay and I were at a function you had at your office the other day, and you were talking to a number of people in your office, and you gave. I don't know if you noticed, it's probably the first time you've sat with me and I haven't asked any questions for a period of time, because you gave a great definition and explanation of how Sacramento works. You were talking about the problem being more systemic than, I don't want to say political, but it's a systemic problem, because they just plug people in the system, and it doesn't matter who's there. They just plug people in the system, and people are afraid to fight the system. Can you explain that for our listeners?
Well, one of the things I noticed when I was up there, and it surprised me a little bit, is that around the institution, which the principles that we operate on are great. The United States Constitution and the way we operate are great because it only allows people to do business incrementally, which is an important thing. But when you plug people in the system, some people come and go, and yet people begin to, if you study the history, you see that they behave the same while they were within that system. And one of the systemic things about the system that is interesting to me is that each of our areas kind of has a sort of a local flavor, and we kind of come out of those elections with sort of that local flavor, and we have the interest of our area that stay the same even though the personalities and maybe the style changes. But at the end of the day, it comes up to the speaker and the pro tem, and the pro tem is the leader of the Senate, and what powers they have to get people to vote the way they want them to vote on the budget, and they have significant powers.
So you were explaining the way I was understanding it, and it made perfect sense to me. The local issues almost aren't as important as the overall scheme for the party, for the state, because if the party has one particular way they want to look at an issue, an individual, let's say an individual Democrat, let's pick on the Democrats because they're in power. So you've got some Democrats that say, well, this is an important local issue to us, but we're afraid to step out of the system because if we do, what could happen to us? What could we lose?
If for example, they don't go along with the budget vote, the pro tem can take away all their committees, take away their staff, move them to a much smaller office or an office across the street. And what happens is then you move to a place where you lose so much that you can no longer advocate effectively for your group. And so you have to decide, how far your constituents would want you to go, and how much of your voice or your active participation in the policy process at the center that you would either keep or give away.
Right, because it's interesting because Clay keeps on making this point, which relates to this. Clay keeps on, you've said that you can't believe how so many Democrats and so many Republicans vote the same way. They refuse to break ranks. And this is why.
Well, I've said that, but I understand why.
Sure.
They want to keep their political position and their power. So, and that's really the problem we have with the national budget right now. They're more interested in keeping their position than they are in solving the financial problems of the United States. But I wanted to go back at some other issues. You used to be in the Assembly.
Yes.
And were you termed out of the Assembly? Is that what that was?
No, actually, in the Assembly of 6 years, but after 4 years, the Senate seat came open. It only comes open about every 8 years. And so at that point, you have to decide whether you're going to run for the Senate, and you can come back and run for those other 2 years after you finish the Senate if you wish, or if you want to stay in the Assembly and then term out and never go on.
So many people make a career of politics or government. Is this one of your goals? I mean, you've got a nice educational background. Are you planning on staying in government, making a career of it?
Actually, I'm more of a citizen politician. You know, I think of myself more as a statesperson. I really had never run for local government. I got involved because there were some issues that I felt really needed to be attacked, and because Kevin McCarthy and
Bill Thomas,
Congressman Thomas, really felt that I had something to offer the team at that point if I got involved. But for me, I've enjoyed all the things I've learned, but it's not something I would have ever wanted to be my first livelihood. Absolutely not.
Our guest in person is State Senator Gene Fuller.
Well, I look at like Garamendi. This fellow was in the Assembly, in the Senate, became insurance commissioner, ran for the federal Senate or Congress. This guy's made a career of politics, and he's been a thorn in the side of a lot of people. I don't know how he keeps getting reelected, but I think term limits are important, but we're not really using them to the way I think that the public wanted them used. When you're done, you're out. The other thing I really wish we could do, and Shannon Grove has been pushing this issue, is let's get a part-time legislator. Why do we need a full-time legislator? Can you answer that?
Well, I really agree that it would be better for us to have a part-time legislature. I have a little different reason, though. My reason just is that this is a spending machine, and when you limit the legislation that can come out of it, you limit its ability to spend. And that's important to me. But when you try to do it, like I have a bill every year that I bring up just out of orneriness that would limit every legislator to 5 bills. They currently get 40. It never even gets out of committee. It never gets out of committee. So I think that we could do the budget in much less time if we do it on time, and now that's been shown we could. It would be hard to run it from a part-time, but I think it would be better because we would shorten the number of stupid bills that come out.
Well, I think,
and it would be less costly.
I think that a lot of these people, when they get up there, they know that they have to make a name for themselves, so they start writing these bills unnecessarily because they think that's going to get them promoted to the next position or elected to the next position.
Well, actually, you would be surprised at the number of people who ask for things from government, and there are just some people who are the kind of parent that never says no.
Yeah. Another issue, you were in education, and I've always been concerned or wondered why most educators seem to be Democratic and lean towards a liberal position. Do you have any insight on that?
Well, I think for me, being born in Kern County and in Shafter and living this lifestyle of my parents and everybody else Republicans, I think that was part of it. A lot of people go to the cities, get their education in the cities or are from the cities. And I think, you're much more likely to be a Democrat in that case. And then the next thing is just it's closed shop. You are required to join the union. You have to pay the dues when you get in. You are usually going to, if you're going to pay the dues, you might as well participate. That's what kind of happens. And over time, your peer group becomes that.
You had mentioned something about the budget, Gene, being on time, which I think is kind of comical. And I heard you say that you were surprised it was on time. It didn't surprise me one bit. But why do you think the budget was on time?
I was absolutely surprised. I'm thrilled that the voters, made it so that the legislature wouldn't get their paycheck unless it was on time. But I didn't really think it'd work. These people are so stubborn; they fight all the time. And magically, like a day and a half before the deadline, they said, "Oh, forget all that other stuff we were arguing about with you guys. Here, we're doing our own without you." And boom, we're passing it so we can get our paycheck. So that was just incredible.
And then it was a ridiculously stupid, unfunded budget.
Yeah, but at least they got it done on time. I mean, it showed the world that it could be done.
Well, I was amazed that the controller had the audacity or the willingness to
that
say
was
it
amazing.
was, and he was a Democrat, that this budget doesn't fly.
Oh, the first one, yeah, the first one that the governor vetoed,
Right.
Yeah, that was a good thing. There should be some tests for it.
Now, even if they had their salary withheld, would they later on get it retroactively?
No, in that case, during the period that they were late, they would not regain that salary.
It's actually forfeited.
Yes.
How about the per diem?
The per diem, I do not believe they could get that retroactively either.
Mm-hmm. Let's pick up there when we get back. We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Kern Radio Newstalk 1180.